been beating the drum for the last 7 months that the deliveries into COMEX are unlike anything we've ever seen. In terms of gold, we've become a net importer. We've always been importing silver since we wasted all of ours and lost our strategic stockpile years ago. We have to import for manufacturing. But as it pertains to gold, most of my 36-year career, we've been net exporters. We have been a net importer since November. And I don't think there's any coincidence to the election and the understanding by the current administration that by letting the rest of the world drain the world's exchanges of the critical commodities, where the folks in Canada are saying, no, silver isn't industrial, it's strategic. And I agree, it is strategic. That these players, these countries like China, Saudi Arabia, India, Russia, and the like, are now sophisticated, coordinated, motivated, and wealthy, and they are using the delivery option against us and have been for a long time. And it's like all of a sudden, there are people in this administration who have gotten wise to this. And we've seen a constant inflow of metal, both gold and silver and platinum, into the COMEX. A lot of it is leaving. And that's one of the things I want to talk about. A lot of times when we talk about deliveries into COMEX, people say, yeah, but it isn't leaving. A lot of it is. So let me start by saying most of my career, Ivan, I would say to people, less than 1% of contracts ever stand for delivery. And when I'm telling you the amount of gold coming into the country is unusual, we're talking by magnitudes of 100 unusual. I mean,
Wow.
ridiculously unusual, where you're seeing record-setting amounts coming in every single month, month after month after month after month, to the tune of north of $100 billion worth since November that we know of. Now, my guess is a lot of metal is coming in through proxy banks like Citi and Goldman and JP that are coming in to private vaulting systems outside the purview of the COMEX. But let's just focus on COMEX for a moment. The first 3 days of the August contract, just the first 3 days of this month's contract, we saw 20,160 contracts post. Now, I used to say less than 1% of those contracts would stand for delivery.
Right.
Ever. 100% of the 20,160 gold contracts, 100% of them stood for delivery. That's
Really?
2,160,000 ounces. Now, you're talking $7 billion worth of gold in 3 days stood for delivery, and almost all of it left the COMEX. So, excuse me, I was doing a little research, and there's a guy on Twitter I want to give a shout out to, PM Bug, as in Precious Metals Bug. And he says, I looked at the totals for the COMEX daily silver stock reports for the last few days. You can see the received and withdrawn numbers here.
Right.
Now, he starts on August 1st, which was a Friday, then August 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. The first 5 days of the August contract for silver, we saw 1,721,192 ounces stand for delivery,
Wow.
post for delivery inside the COMEX ecosystem. Delivered 1,721,192 ounces. From that, 1,890,316 ounces were withdrawn. More silver was withdrawn from the COMEX market in 5 days than was delivered. Almost 2 million ounces. Now ask yourself this, Ivan. 2 million ounces of silver is not something you can put in a knapsack and scurry on off. You're talking several semi trucks worth. Who's taking it? Where is it going? But this is a pattern that we have been seeing in both gold and silver, literally month over month over month over month. And the interesting thing is, not only do we have zero idea who's taking it,
Right.
but there's zero commentary about it on anything mainstream. You would think something as significant as the United States, for the first time since World War II, when World War II ended, we took everyone's gold. It was part of the Bretton Woods Agreement. You give us our gold, your gold, we'll hold it for you safely, and you can, at any time you'd like, exchange it into get your gold back by giving us $35. So, in essence, we held people's gold. We would say, listen, you've been in 2 world wars, give us your gold, we'll pay you $35 for it. You can invest it back into treasuries. Not only will you not have to hold your gold, but you'll earn a yield on it. And anytime you want it back, we'll pay you $35, or you'll pay us $35. We'll give you back that ounce. So everyone sent us their gold after World War II. It's the most gold coming in this country and being delivered into the COMEX ecosystem since the end of World War II. But what's really crazy about all of this, to me, is the fact that all of this metal, lots of it, is leaving the COMEX and is
Right.
leaving it for greener pastures. And when you understand that once it leaves the ecosystem, it ain't coming back. Give you another little story about that. I have a client. We have 9 Brinks vaults around North America in our Brinks storage program. One of them is a COMEX vault that's Brinks JFK,
Okay.
and the rest of them are not COMEX vaults. So I had a client who bought a whole bunch of 1,000 ounce bars, and I call a guy that I know in the industry, and he gets things directly from the Royal Canadian Mint, and he says, "Listen, I have all that you need in 1,000 ounce bars held at JFK." I said, "Listen, she really wants to keep it in Salt Lake City. She doesn't want it in New York City." He says, "I wouldn't advise that." I'm like, "Well, why?"
Right.
He's like, "Well, because once it leaves the COMEX ecosystem, and by the way, those bars that are in the vault there are eligible. Registered are the bars that are backing the contracts for delivery. So all the people that have metal in a COMEX facility like Brinks JFK or like CNT in Bridgewater, Massachusetts, or Delaware Depository, these are all COMEX vaults. These people have no intention of ever selling the metal, but it is eligible. It is eligible in the respect that it is in the ecosystem. It has been cataloged by purity, by serial number, by weight, and if they want to register it for open delivery, if anyone wants to, against those contracts, they can. So in other words, the eligible metal, most of the people holding it have no intention of ever selling it.
Right.
In any case, so that would have been eligible. So the guy says to me, "Listen,
Listen, you're discussing a few $1 million worth, and if you transfer it to Brink Salt Lake City, it'll be outside the COMEX framework. It'll need to be retested to come back in." I'm like, well, that's ridiculous as hell, man. I'm like, dude, it's moving from Brinks JFK, which is COMEX, by Brinks truck to Brinks Salt Lake City. No one's ever handling it except Brinks. Why would that need to be retested? Doesn't matter, he says, because once it exits the network, it has to be drilled and tested. Now, consider that when you're referencing 2 million ounces in 1,000 ounce bars, right? So you're talking 2,000 bars that would need to be retested to return. This is expensive. It consumes time. They're never coming back. So when you notice all this gold and silver taken out of the COMEX system, it is much more bullish in the sense that whoever is taking custody of it has no intention of ever letting it re-enter the network to keep sustaining this illusion of short selling and the falsehood that no one ever demands delivery. The method, like Jim Sinclair mentioned, to defeat the suppression is to stand for delivery. No one ever does that. But there are organizations now that are, whether it's the BRICS nations, Russia, Saudi Arabia, China, India, all of these states through sovereign wealth funds are standing for delivery. But also, there are some very advanced participants in the United States. And I would argue at the tier where individuals between gold and silver in the first 5 days, pardon me, $15 billion worth of gold and silver were handed over in the first 5 days of the August contract. And a great deal of it departed. These individuals are affluent enough to be extremely well informed. And so, it's not merely the wealth that these people have at that tier. When you're discussing billions of dollars, you're mingling with individuals that are providing you with insider knowledge. So they're well informed. These are the most capitalized and well-informed traders on Earth who have spent more than $100 billion that we are aware of in acquiring metal, much of it departing. Now, who the hell are they? And why is it so critical for them to remove the counterparty exposure of leaving it within a network? All of these matters expose the manipulation of the paper valuation, which is the ultimate instrument of distraction. Nothing to observe here. Silver isn't acting how you assume it should. Keep on moving. This has permitted the military-industrial establishment and other entities, the 8 Western financial institutions, to suppress the hell out of the valuation of silver for ages so they can manufacture high-tech armaments, destroy regions like Ukraine, and BlackRock just happens to be the principal custodian of SLV. At the same time, with JP Morgan, they control the majority of the arms producers. They're the military-industrial establishment. So, they demolish areas like Ukraine after financing all of the conflict, financing in the form of weapons to maintain the battle. And then, when a nation requires reconstruction, guess who receives the rebuilding deals? It's BlackRock. This is a system that's far, far deeper than all of us silver and gold enthusiasts truly comprehend. But it's being uncovered through the delivery procedure. And being naked short right now, in this situation, Ivan is as foolish as a mud wall in a downpour. And it won't persist long. So, we're approaching that point where once it breaks past 40, between 40 and 50, you have very minimal resistance. I mean, overall, between 1980 and 2011, it was above 40 for just a few days. That isn't resistance. That's merely pause points along the route. So, theoretically, once it moves beyond 40, 41, 42, honestly, you could witness it surge beyond 50 and then some very swiftly, simply because there's nothing blocking its path. It's similar to gold, which repeatedly attempted to surpass 2,300 and kept hitting it, dropping, rising above it, falling again. But once it finally broke away, it was off to the races to where we are today. It touched 3,500. We're at 3,350 and climbing again. The technical pattern appears identical to gold about 6, 8 months or a year back. Silver does right now.